Of course, viewers, was the preserve of Nirmala Sitharaman as she brought out the provisions of the budget. But the mood in Parliament today was very different. Disorder, mayhem over a memoir. Rahul Gandhi stood up and quoted from the unpolished and unpublished memoirs of former Army Chief General Manoj Narvane to attack the Modi government on national security and China. Excerpts of the memoir have been published by a little-known magazine that caters to an elite Latvians audience not favorably disposed to Prime Minister Narendra Modi. In that sense, it isn't an objective chronicler of events. Even so, the unverified and reportedly selectively quoted excerpts from this yet unpublished memoir seem to have made a very deep impression on Rahul Gandhi on a day when he could have stood up in Parliament, viewers, and taken the government on. The budget, which he himself claimed did not promote job growth or, viewers, financial well-being, he chose to fritter away in the delusions and indulgences of a magazine. Viewers, the excerpt that he picked up was a particular one based on an episode on August 31st, 2020. Article in this little-known pamphlet in Latvian circles. This article on the book says 4 Chinese tanks were advancing to Rechinla. The tanks were within few hundred meters of Indian positions on Kailash range. Frantic calls were made to leaders of India's military and political establishment. General Narvane says that to each and every one, my question was, what are my orders? Excerpt suggests General Narvane's superiors did not give any clear directives. As per the article, the government's message to General Narvane was to do whatever you deem appropriate, unquote. General Narvane says he had been handed a hot potato. The article quotes him saying, with this carte blanche, the onus was now totally on me, unquote. He says, we were ready in all respects, but did I really want to start a war? Now, viewers, listen into what Rahul Gandhi then says. He quotes this particular passage. Listen.
This is from the memoir of Army Chief Naravane. This is about when 4 Chinese tanks were entering Indian territory. They were taking a ridge in Doklam.
वो डरे हुए हैं क्योंकि अगर वो निकला तो नरेंद्र मोदी और राजनाथ सिंह की जो रियलिटी है वो लोगों को पता लग जाएगी कि जब चाइना हमारे सामने खड़ा था, आगे आ रहा था, 56 इंच की छाती को क्या हुआ था उस लाइन में है.
Viewers, he says it would have established a reality that would have shamed the government. That is bizarre because General Narvane writes and says, they gave me carte blanche. Now, viewers, what more does a professional soldier need? He is there to defend the country, and if the political establishment is saying, we give you full operational freedom, I would be jumping with joy because it would be completely my decision. That's what you get into the uniform for, viewers. To exercise your own autonomy in the defense of your own nation. So they should have let Rahul Gandhi speak. They should have let him quote these selectively extracted pieces from this yet unpublished memoir. Because actually, viewers, the government would have looked better. It would have come across as a government that allows the army to take the calls when the need arises. That it believes that every wing of the state must work independently and assess the situation on its merits. But despite the excerpt suggesting that the Modi government gave the chief of India's army at that time full operational freedom to do his job as he deemed fit, the laudable and professional thing to do. The NDA ironically opposed Rahul Gandhi's remarks on principle. Now that's okay, viewers. You can invoke principle, even if at that time it might have been inconvenient to you. And one must laud the government for sticking by principle, the rules of the House, even though what Rahul Gandhi was actually saying by quoting these excerpts were going to make the government look good. And those principles were spelt out by three of the NDA's topmost ministers. Rajnath Singh, he says the book the LOP is referring to has not been published. He should not be allowed to speak on this because the rules of the House don't allow you to speak on something that is unverified. Amit Shah, the Union Home Minister, says, how can Rahul quote an unpublished book? Avoid making unverified claims in Parliament because viewers, while MPs and especially LOP has parliamentary privilege, you can't use your position to slander. Kiran Rijiju, he came out and said newspapers and magazines can't be quoted in the House. Discuss action against members defying the Speaker. This is what was said. But despite being informed that he's breaking rules, Rahul Gandhi doubled down and went on to repeat his claims. So the House had to be adjourned. There was no discussion on the President's address. Not once did Gandhi's science colleagues in Parliament interrupt him to tell him that in his zeal to attack the government, he may have overlooked some obvious facts. That the ex-army chief had publicly extolled India's response to Chinese expansionist adventurism in eastern Ladakh. Listen in, viewers. I'm not making this up. This is General Narvane speaking, saying that, look, the government did a fantastic job. We did a great job. Listen to this.
I think not only of the PLA itself, but I feel it diminished the stature of China as a country in the global eyes. Because after this clash occurred and we showed that it is possible to stand up to China, who tries to bully its smallest neighbors. Once we did that, I think from Canada to Lithuania to Europe to Philippines, everyone actually, got that feeling that yes, if you're fighting for what is correct, if you have a principled stand, it is possible to take a stand even against China. Mm-hmm. And we don't have to always be cowed down by the might that they try to project. India as a country showed to the world that it is possible to take on that neighborhood bully, as is the case everywhere. Whether it is a school bully or a neighborhood bully, you have to stand up to him sometime or the other. Right. We showed it can be done.
We showed it can be done, he said. We showed it can be done. With Rahul refusing to accept obvious contradictions, staring him in the face, the centre went on to offensive, questioning his credentials to stand in judgment of the Modi government. Rahul Gandhi is reading unverified and fake claims in Parliament. Rahul Gandhi is undermining the dignity of the House. Unpublished books can be not used to concoct facts. Nehru gave up thousands of acres for his statesmanship. Rahul Gandhi should read The Himalayan Blunder by John Dalby, said the government. Rahul should read My Years with Nehru, The Chinese Betrayal by B.N. Malik. Rahul should read Crosswinds by Vijay Gokhale on Nehru's China policy. The Congress has, of course, very little right to criticize the Modi government. History shows that the Congress has not acquitted itself admirably in office with regard to standing up to China and Pakistan, viewers. And I can give you a whole bunch of hard facts here because the hard facts, viewers, the hard facts allow you to separate the wheat from the chaff. So in 1947, when Pakistan-backed tribesmen invaded, Nehru delayed military action and allowed Pakistan to occupy Jammu and Kashmir. Nehru took the matter to the United Nations that formalized the LOC. Viewers, that was a big blunder. In 1950 to 1962, when India lost Aksai Chin to China, Nehru ignored intel, didn't confront China on construction of roads in Aksai Chin. India refused to accept China and American help by possibly retaking Aksai Chin from China. In 1962, Sino-Indian War after the fall of Bomdila, Nehru's speech interpreted as conceding region. Nehru said, our countrymen in Assam, to whom our heart goes out, unquote. 1965, Haji Pir Pass, India returned the military and strategically important Haji Pir to Pakistan. In 1972, Shimla Agreement, Congress returned all Pak prisoners and land without securing a deal, a written settlement on Kashmir. Tonight, viewers, as we recall these hard facts, it is clear the debate isn't just about Modi versus Rahul Gandhi. It's about who gets to judge whom. Is Rahul Gandhi exposing uncomfortable truths, or is he selectively quoting a former chief of the army to slander NDA's strategic record? And does pulling an unpublished memoir into Parliament cross a red line between democratic scrutiny and politicizing the armed forces? Viewers, is Rahul Gandhi concerned about national security, or is he staging a political theatre, once again playing to the galleries, which will end up only giving China bragging rights, viewers? Let's open this up. Let's ask some honest questions tonight, viewers. And I want to begin first with Sushant Sareen. Sushant Sareen, I feel, and we were speaking this afternoon, and I think you have referred to this also on Twitter, on X, etc., that the government should have allowed Rahul Gandhi to read these excerpts, because he would have only ended up making a point that they wanted to perhaps make, that the NDA gives the military free rein to do what it wants and to assess situations professionally. But we didn't see that. We saw the NDA jump in and stymie Rahul Gandhi.
Yeah, and I think the whole debate was quite unnecessary. Number one, there was nothing new in what Rahul Gandhi was saying. Everybody was behaving that suddenly some new revelation has come, which nobody is aware of. The print had published a similar story, exactly the same quotes, exactly the same extract, way back in December 2023. Obviously, nobody read this in the parliament or in the government or in the opposition for that matter. And suddenly everybody got their knickers in a twist. So, one, I understand where the government is coming from, that if something has not been published so far, then, you are suddenly bringing out an extract and nobody can verify whether this is an actual extract or not. That point is very well taken. But I think where the government lost the plot was that, when there is somebody like Rahul Gandhi, who I don't think should be taken very seriously on national security matters anyways, but when somebody like him is trying to ambush you, I think you have to have a game plan ready to how to combat it. Resorting to technicalities in parliament seems to suggest that you're trying to hide something. Now, what exactly is there in the text, Rahul? I think you have explained it very well. You don't expect that if there is suddenly an evolving situation on the border, the commanders are asking the political leadership as to what exactly needs to be done. Do you expect that the Raksha Mantri or the National Security Advisor, or for that matter, the Prime Minister, to take a decision in exactly 2 minutes and say that, okay, fine, go launch an attack? Now, most politicians, and I don't blame them for it, they are not soldiers. They are not really trained in the art of military warfare. They rely upon the advice of their advisors, military advisors, to take a political call. Now, the political call initially was that please don't fire, don't be the first ones to fire. Once the situation escalated and the army chief reaches out to the political leadership, the political boss, which is the Prime Minister, tells the Raksha Mantri to convey to the army chief that take whatever action appropriate, whatever action you think is appropriate. Now, you don't expect a political leadership to say, okay, fine, fire 2 rounds, then wait and see what that guy is doing. And then, that entire communication cycle comes back. अच्छा जी, उन्होंने 2 round fire करे, अब हम 2 round fire करेंगे, 3 round fire करेंगे. You don't behave like this in an active situation.
Yes.
So you have the mandate to the commanders to take the action, whatever action they feel necessary. And that is when the army chief instructs his commanders that, look, you move your tanks, move them in an offensive manner, make it very well known to the Chinese that in case they were to advance further ahead or were to fire, we will fire back and we will kill them. It is as simple as that. And they handled the matters at the front. So I don't know what this whole controversy is. I don't see why any reason why the government should not encourage a debate on this.
Yeah.
And finally, last point, Rahul, unless there is some specific reason for holding permission to this book, and there is some specific objection which the government has, and they want certain parts of this book to be excised because they reveal certain decision-making procedures, I don't see any reason why the government should have any problem in getting this book out. I don't know why they're just sitting on it.
So let me bring in Sanju Verma. Sanju Verma, the BJP's national spokesperson. Sometimes restraint is strength in politics. perhaps the government should have activated itself or should not have activated itself in the manner it did to stop Rahul Gandhi. Yes, it's good to put principles first. I'm not denying that. I sort of suggested that and wrote about that too. But you stood on principles, but you might have lost the narrative war. That's what I feel.
You know, Rahul, I very humbly beg to disagree with you. I agree with Sushant Sareen says that, nobody takes Rahul Gandhi seriously. Where I disagree with Sushant Sareen is when he says that, the government got its knickers in a twist. No, I think this was not about procedural semantics or technicalities. The government of the day has every right to call out the bluff of the leader of the opposition. And if it means doing it again and again and again, so be it. Point number one. Point number two, Rahul Gandhi is not taken seriously is now a known fact. But does that mean that the government should give him a carte blanche to go out and peddle lies and play the role of a propagandist, which he seems to be doing? Point number three, I think today one very important aspect that has come out is that while, Manoj Mukund Naravne may have said a thing or two which needs to be vetted by the Ministry of Defence, the larger point has been reinforced to a very large audience. The larger point M.N. Naravne made was point number one, not an inch of territory has been ceded. The point which he made next was China was at the receiving end. And the most important point made by the former army chief was when he said that we looked at the neighboring bully in the eye and called out the arrogant hubris of the neighboring bully.
Right.
I think these 3 points were reinforced loud and clear. And my final point is this. Forget technicalities, but let's not forget one important point. The government has every right, sweeping powers, and the prerogative to not only vet, but decide whether a former army chief's book will finally hit the stands, whether paragraphs need to be redacted, whether there are things that need to be deleted. And I'm not obsessed with Pandit Nehru, but this is why Rule 21, Section 3 of the Armed Forces Act of 1954. And my final point, without being verbose, Rahul, is this. Who is lecturing the Modi government today? Please, bear with me for 20 seconds. Who's lecturing the Modi government today? The Darbaris of Pandit Nehru, who actually called the then Field Marshal Karyappa in a letter in 1952 as somebody who's completely off the track, both mentally and otherwise. The acolytes of Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, who denied the then Field Marshal Sam Manekshaw his pension. He retired in 1973, Rahul, but he was given his pension by Manmohan Singh in 2007, 34 years
the point being,
the point being that the Congress party has continuously undermined every
so the Congress
chief.
party has no right to stand in judgment when it has been complicit in undermining India's national security, says the BJP. Sir, how would you respond to that, Tehseen Poonawalla? And I want to bring in Dr. Ranganathan right after. Yes.
Rahul, thank you so much for having me on the show.
Suman Siraman. Yeah.
Thank you, Rahul, for having me on the show. Very few times I agree with Sushant Sareen, but here I completely agree with him. Look, I believe firmly as a nationalist, though I'm in the opposition, that we gave China a befitting reply and we kicked them on their backsides and threw them out. No if, no but. And to that extent, I joined a good general in saluting my Prime Minister, though I'm in opposition, that he took a good decision. But here the leader of opposition is making a point. So first, let's go on what the BJP spokesperson said on your show, and I'm quoting her verbatim. She says government has every right to stop the leader of opposition, not give him a right to spread propaganda, etc., etc., etc. Except, Rahul, that the parliament is not run by the government, it's run by the speaker. So what the BJP spokesperson has proved on your show is the speaker is not the speaker of parliament, but a BJP member of parliament who follows the diktats of the government. Now, point number 2. Let me come on the second point. Let me ask you, Rahul, as somebody who's a nationalist and everyone on this show, when Bofors came out in an interview in radio,
I'm a patriot.
A patriot.
Yeah.
When Bofors came out in an interview on Sweden in a radio.
No,
second, please, come on, Sanju, that's not fair. When Bofors came out on an interview in Sweden on a radio show, and some article was printed somewhere, and the government then got it into parliament and was flashing those papers, what evidence did they have? What was verified at that point of time? Let me come to closer down. When CAG draft reports on 2G and other things, not even gone to the PAC, were out in the media, And they wasted an entire session of parliament. What evidence did they have?
Okay.
Today you are teaching us morality.
Rahul.
Okay.
Where this matter comes in, and I'd like to hang it. So, please,
want to quickly
Sanjuji.
come in
The only question that is, again, no one doubts our armed forces. For the first time in 40 years versus China, we lost 20 braves. Somebody has to be accountable. On some shows, on your sister channel when we go, some of the people from the BJP saying, no, China didn't come in, India went on their territory. Is this the line of the BJP? Today I want to know. If 20 of my Indian soldiers laid down their lives for my motherland, who's accountable?
Very quick, Sanju Verma, I have to bring in Dr. Ranganathan and
Yes.
Dr. Sumansi Raman. Both have waited patiently. Yes, very quickly. Yes.
Yes. Rahul, thank you for saying that you're a patriot. And let me tell Percy, you won't like to hear this. This is completely off tangent. But just 24 hours back, simply because the government raised the STT, in your tweet, in your post on X, you called the government a shameless government. This is the kind of vitriol. This is the kind of vitriol.
Okay,
I think it's a shameless.
We can't be
I think it's a
choosing-
shameless government that's taxing the middle class and going back on its promises. I think the government is absolutely
Listen, I'm not getting
shameless
into
with the
this.
middle
I want to
class.
bring in Dr. Ranganathan.
Sorry, I apologize,
Substantive
but
points.
she's diverted.
Substantive points,
You are not
please.
a patriot. Neither are you a nationalist. You use
Okay, no, I don't want to get
language.
into this
Percy
tutu
Purwala.
meme. Okay, stop. Okay, yes, Dr. Ranganathan and Dr. Raman. Yes, Dr. Ranganathan first. Go ahead.
Good
Yes.
evening, Rahul. Wonderful discussion. Look, the issue is not that Rahul Gandhi may have violated the Official Secrets Act by making public a document currently being vetted by the Defense Ministry. The issue is also not that not once has any serving military officer said that India lost an inch of territory under Modi. Quite the contrary. This is also not about the fact that unlike a Congress Prime Minister, the BJP Prime Minister gave full powers to our military chief to act as he wished. And this is also not about the fact that the government not allowing military info to be made public. Remember, the Congress did not make public the Henderson-Brooks report in India-China war for 50 years. The BJP demanded its publishing. But the moment the BJP came to power, the BJP itself hasn't made it public for 11 years. No, the issue is that the Congress's idea of Indian geography is geography dictated by foreign cartographers. Just as the Congress's idea of Indian foreign policy is Indian policy dictated by foreigners. The government is absolutely right. Right from the time when Dr. Ambedkar resigned from the Nehru cabinet in 1951, warning that under Nehru, India was being made to champion China's cause and that its suicidal foreign policy would lead to the ruination of India. To Congress presiding over the loss of Aksai Chin and then nonchalantly claiming not a blade of grass grows there. To Nehru thoughtlessly taking Kashmir to the UN against Sardar Patel's counsel. To Nehru rejecting the King of Nepal's offer to merge Nepal with India. To Nehru declining Omar's offer to Gwadar port. To Nehru giving up on Coco Islands. To Nehru rebuffing an offer to India to be made permanent member of the UN Security Council and advocating that China should become one. To Nehru being the root cause of Kachativu as well. It was he who said in 1961, I quote, I attach no importance to this little island and I'd have no hesitation in giving up on our claims to his, unquote. The dutiful daughter then carried out Nehru's unfinished business in 1974. The island was signed away as court. It was disputed side and India's claim had to be balanced with the need for good bilateral ties, unquote. That's right. At the altar of good bilateral ties, you give away our precious land to Pakistan, to China, to Sri Lanka. Land bhi chala gaya, good bilateral ties bhi, and moving swiftly on to contemporary times. The same Rahul who today accuses Modi of selling India out, the same Rahul was tight-lipped when China occupied 640 square kilometers of eastern Ladakh during the UPA. A fact reiterated by UPA's own Foreign Secretary Sham Saran. Who knows? Perhaps calling for the breakup of Ladakh was an obligation on part of the Congress in that MOU that it signed with the Communist Party of China back in 2008. The same Rahul was tight-lipped when China managed to make 600 incursions into Indian side between 2010 and 2013, just 30 seconds, including in 2013 when Chinese entered 28 kilometers deep into our territory in Dakar. Hello?
Yeah, go ahead. We can hear you, Doctor.
Yes, thank you. As I was saying, the same Rahul remained silent when UPA Defense Minister said he isn't building roads and infra at our border for fear of the enemy using them. The same Rahul remained silent at our capitulation in the Sharm el-Sheikh agreement under the UPA when we allowed the insinuation that we were fomenting trouble in Balochistan. And finally, our Air Chief Dhanova is on record saying that the Indian Air Force wanted to bomb terror hideouts in Pakistan in the wake of 2611 but was forbidden to do so by Manmohan Singh. Kashmir, Ladakh, Coco, Kachativu, these were the pearls in the necklace that adorned the dynast's neck. small mercy, the entire necklace has been taken off and gifted away, Rahul.
Okay, so let me just bring in Dr. Raman. Dr. Raman, and this is a straight question. Does pulling an unpublished memoir into Parliament cross a red line between democratic scrutiny and politicizing the armed forces, sir? Simple.
Okay. First of all, Rahul, I think this is a self-goal today by the government. There was absolutely no need to, they could easily have rebutted what he said. And apparently the book does have a lot of very flattering references to the government and to the Prime Minister. So there was this one paragraph should have been countered. Instead, they pressed the panic button fully, and the way they came down on him like a ton of bricks. Look, let's be very clear. This General Naravane has not said he didn't say all this. He did. He has, until this particular moment, he has not gone back on this. The Caravan magazine, which has published some of this material, has also not said that this is something which we will withdraw, or this is a fake publication or whatever. So as of now, nobody has contradicted this content, right?
Yep.
I think we all agree, all of us on the debate are in agreement that nobody at this point has contradicted this. So in that case, to keep saying it is an unapproved, it is not unpublished. The
Unverified.
book has been published. The book may not have been published, but the Caravan article has been published. It is in public domain. So what are we saying that, if nothing that hypothetically, General Naravane had written only glowing tributes to the decisive actions of the government. I don't think the government would have had any problem if a BJP member had read it out in Parliament.
Okay.
So let's be very clear.
Please.
Go on saying this is an unpublished book.
Okay,
The
well,
book is unpublished, but the article is published. It is in public domain. So please don't keep saying.
Okay, so I also believe, viewers, that you might have stood on principle, and you have a prerogative to do so, and it's probably the right thing, but you lost the narrative war. You could easily have let Rahul Gandhi walk into that trap that he had set for himself.
What were the principles in Bofors?
Well, there are lots of things. There are lots of things.
And by the way, Rahul, why is the book not approved yet? Apparently, it's under review for more than 1 year.
All of those points,
Why?
all of those points are well accepted and taken. I want to move on. All of those points are well accepted. I don't think today they should have just let Rahul Gandhi natter on, because actually at the end of the day he's given so many speeches even before elections and they haven't turned the tide. So people understand that he has to do what he has to do, which is to perhaps oppose for the sake of it. But I think in this particular case, and I agree that perhaps the speaker should have been left to make the decision as to what he wants to take on record or not. I just want to move on because, viewers, there's a lot to cover tonight. There's also a very important story that I want to talk about, a near accident, and we're going to get to that in just about 10 minutes. But before that, we'll take a detour. The T20 World Cup is set to begin in mere 4 days from now. But viewers, the drama which began almost 4 weeks ago with Bangladesh's refusal to play in India peaked with Pakistan's announcement that it won't play against India, even as it confirmed its participation in the World Cup. Now, viewers, Pakistan has chickened out. It has been so racked by defeats on the cricket field and on the battlefield that it has lost its appetite to go up against India. So it pulls out, it throws a tantrum. It says, oh, because you see Bangladesh has been discriminated against and so forth, we're also pulling out. Viewers, they have taken a position. And now the ball is in the ICC's court. And a number of you have come out and said that the ICC should just end this charade and they should kick Pakistan out, boot them out. It's done. The only statement that the ICC has put out, viewers, is the one that I have here. And the ICC has come out and said, and we can just put it out, this position of selective participation is difficult to reconcile with the fundamental premise of a global sporting event. It goes on to say All qualified teams are expected to compete on equal terms per the event schedule. Selective participation undermines the spirit and sanctity of the competitions. This decision is not in the interest of the global game or the welfare of fans worldwide, including millions in Pakistan. The ICC hopes that the PCB will consider the significant and long-term implications for cricket in its own country. Now, viewers, this is likely to impact, it says, the global cricket ecosystem, which is itself a member and beneficiary of. It expects the PCB to explore a mutually acceptable resolution which protects the interests of all stakeholders. Now, viewers, the BCCI has refused to say anything on the matter, saying it is aligned with the international body on the matter. Pakistan might be chickening out of a contest against India, whom it has not beaten in the last 8 T20 encounters. But the question is, what will be the cost of this decision for Pakistan financially and for their cricketing future? Because in case Pakistan continues with this petulance, the impact for its empty coffers will be immense. Just this one game has close to 500 crore riding on it in broadcast and advertising losses. 4,500 crore stake is the total valuation of an India-Pakistan World Cup match. 300 crore wipeout estimated advertising revenue lost instantly. 200 crore hit direct loss projected for the broadcast alone. And so, viewers, I don't know why the ICC is sitting on propriety. It should just kick out Pakistan and basically, viewers, slap it with the fine that it knows it can't pay. Break Pakistan's back. Cowardly board. Let's open this up because I really need to get into this story, viewers. Why is the ICC dithering? Doctor, and we'll also, of course, bring in Tehseen Poonawala into this conversation. Dr. Ranganathan, why is the ICC dithering? I mean, the nation has been saying for a very long time, and let me just take your memory back. The nation has been reminding the ICC that India doesn't want to play against Pakistan after Operation Sindoor. But the ICC tells us that if you pull out, if the BCCI pulls out of a multilateral tournament, it means that they lose their right to play any tournament. In fact, it might have a huge impact on other sporting federations and a whole bunch of Indian athletes won't be able to participate. But viewers, what do we have? These rules are not being applied in the case of the PCB. What's going on here, Doctor?
No, I'll tell you what's going on. I think another meeting with the IMF is going to be rescheduled as far as Pakistan is concerned, because all this money that they were going to earn, they're going to, take out their begging bowls all of a sudden again and, go begging. No, but there are a couple of points that I need to make. Look, my stand is very clear. India should boycott Pakistan and all bilateral meetings, including sports or culture or politics or what have you. But in a multilateral event, I am for the participation and not for boycott. And I've given my reasons previously. In World Cup, for example, we don't boycott Olympics because Pakistan takes part in it. We didn't boycott the javelin competitions. So that's my stand. Out here, I would still have accepted Pakistan not participating if the reasons that it had given were based on security. For example, it is well known even in World Cups, I can't remember in the 1980s, if India did that, but many nations did not go to Sri Lanka. And I think they lost a couple of points during the 1987 World Cup, I think it was. That's fine. That's the prerogative of the nation to decide whether on security reasons it wants to take part in an event. But out here, they have not given security reasons as the answer, have they? As the reason why they're not taking part. It's an absolutely useless administration, straight from the cricket administration to the entire administration of the nation that is responsible for this debacle. And I think ICC, because the security reason has not been given, the ICC is within its right and it must come down hard on Pakistan and say, what is the reason? Your reason for not taking part is not acceptable. Okay. We are going to throw you out.
Well, viewers, I'm just going to break some news here. Fresh news coming in. US President Donald Trump has just spoken to Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Talks a day after Trump's India will buy Venezuelan oil claim, and the US envoy Sergio Gore has confirmed the Trump-Modi talks. There you can see it. And he says, stay tuned. So what is exactly transpired? What is transpired? Let me go across to Zaka Jacob, who's going to be joining me in just a few moments. Viewers, this is now something that we have seen just about last month, where once again there was a conversation where Trump had come out and said that, look, we are getting along swimmingly. If you remember at Davos, he had spoken to your channel, CNN News 18. He had spoken to one of our reporters there. And Chandra had told us that when she posed the question to Donald Trump about the trade deal, he says, we are talking extensively and this trade deal is going to be done. This is a massive statement coming out, viewers. Sergio Gore says, stay tuned. What has happened that we need to stay tuned for? Remember, just yesterday, Donald Trump, in the middle of the budget speech, came out and said that India has agreed to buy Venezuelan oil. So the timing is significant. There was also a comment a few days back, viewers, from one of the top cabinet ministers of the Trump regime. And he said very clearly that there is the possibility of waving aside the extra 25% sanctions that have been imposed on India for buying Russian oil. Now that India has stopped purchasing Russian oil in those quantities, we can relook at that particular decision. Has that decision been taken, viewers? Has that 25% tariff been withdrawn? We don't know. But this is very, very significant. And I think I have with me Zaka Jacob. We're going to try and get him. Let me just call him, actually. Let me just call him on my own phone because it could be quicker. Let me just dial Zaka and try to get him on. Let's just see if we can get through to Zaka Jacob and go straight to him because I don't know why.
Yeah, Rahul,
there you are. There he is. There he is, Zaka. There he is, Zaka. Great. This is brilliant. So lovely to see you. Zaka, what's happening here? Donald Trump calls the Prime Minister. Sergio Gore says, stay tuned. Just about a week and a half back, if my memory serves me, someone was talking about removing some sort of sanction, penalty, etc. What's happening?
Yeah, I think we're given to understand the conversation is around oil. Remember, President Trump had just put out on Truth Social yesterday, just before the budget, that India will buy Venezuelan oil. It will stop buying oil from Russia, from Iran. So I think the conversation today was on oil. That's what top sources have told us, which basically means that if you go back to what Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, said last week, that he now sees a pathway for the 25% oil tariffs, the Russian oil tariffs that was imposed on India back in August, for that to be removed. So it looks like we're on that pathway for the removal of that 25% Russian oil tariffs. Like I said, I don't want to second guess what President Trump is going to announce. Looks like he will put out a Truth Social post very soon detailing what the conversation was about. But the expectation is around that second set of tariffs, not the reciprocal ones that were imposed in the first week of August, but towards the end of August, the one that he imposed for import of Russian oil, India being the second largest importer of Russian oil. That seems to be the point of the conversation, and that seems like there's going to be some degree of rollback on that second set of oil tariffs.
Well, what fun, viewers. Just stay on with me, Zaka, because I just also want to pivot to Sushant Sareen, who's here with us. There's Dr. Ranganathan, and there's, of course, Tehseen Poonawala. Just stay on with me, all of you folks. Let's make that a 4-window screen, Director Sahab. I want to go straight across to Sushant Sareen. Sushant Sareen and Dr. Ranganathan both here with me. Sushant Sareen, what does this tell you? What is happening in the backdrop? Remember that in just a few days, Dr. Jaishankar, EM, is going to be meeting with Mr. Rubio. Jaishankar has landed in the United States. This is all gathering pace. What's going on?
Look, one, I don't think anybody can predict what's going on. I don't know what the hell President Trump is going to tweet in a little while. What new announcement is going to come? Is it a bombshell or is it a gift to India? For all you know, he might be saying that we reached the trade deal. And Modi is keeping quiet that let Trump take credit for the trade deal. It could be removal of that extra 25% oil tariff which they have imposed. It could be anything. It could be, in any case, you know, when he was talking about India buying Venezuelan oil, how much oil is Venezuela taking out right now? They take out about 1 million, maybe 2 million barrels. Much of it will probably go to the US. Some of it we were buying already. We'll buy some more. It doesn't matter. It does not really alter the oil market in a significant way. And as far as Iranian oil is concerned, I was a little surprised because India has not been buying Iranian oil for at least 5-6 years now. I don't know from where the Iranian oil came into his tweet, but then
Well,
he
okay.
is Trump, he can say anything.
Okay, so 1 second. Zaka, I just want to call you in on this. Trump's likes, as he says himself, to make him, well, he likes people to make him feel happy. What do you think the Prime Minister can do to make Trump happy? The Prime Minister has red lines on the trade deal, so there's very little elbow room. I don't know what could make him so happy that we have to stay tuned for some big announcement.
Look, the red lines are clear. Agri and dairy, India has very clear red lines when it comes to agriculture and dairy and opening it up to foreign investment or to foreign products. I think some of what India could offer the Trump administration, I think you already saw yesterday in the budget speech, global capability centers for big tech companies, particularly global big tech companies. There'll be a tax holiday till 2047. So I think that's, a big positive for American companies, big American tech companies like Google and Microsoft to come up and set up huge GCCs here in India. And as you know, President Trump likes to listen to the big tech companies in America. So that's one big thing that the budget has announced. There's also some announcements about aircraft parts for spare parts to be allowed. Again, Boeing is one of the biggest aircraft manufacturers and spare part manufacturers in the world. So that is, again, a positive as far as the relationship is concerned. But I think this specific conversation, this phone call that happened today, is the first time in 2026 that they've spoken on the phone, first time since Sergio Gore arrived here in India. And as you rightly said, Jaishankar is in the United States right now. He's going to be attending the Critical Minerals Summit, Pax Silica. India will officially join Pax Silica as the 9th member of that group of countries that have come together for rare earth supply chains. So this, I think, the announcement of the easing of this tariffs that he's imposed, whether it's the Russian oil tariffs or the reciprocal tariffs, I think you can expect something on that front when Jaishankar is in the US. And like I said, the fastest and easiest way to know what's happening is to wait for Trump's Truth Social post.
Stay on with me. Dr. Ranganathan, clearly, we've got indications. It's the first conversation that they've actually had after Sergio Gore. Sergio Gore is very close to Donald Trump. He was sent here as the man from inside the Oval Office, literally, to come here and fix this relationship. Trump likes to be made happy. There are indications now that India has sort of backed off on buying Russian oil. I don't know, maybe they're doing it covertly. I don't know. There are all sorts of hoops that you can go through. But at least on the face of it, that's enough for Mr. Trump to walk away and say, look, I chastised India. I did what I had to. They pulled back on the Russian oil. Now they're going to buy Venezuelan oil. It's all fine. I've got my little victory, and I'm going to withdraw the 25% extra sanction. Do you think that's really it?
I completely agree with Sushant Paji out here. There's no way of saying what Trump is thinking. I mean, I'd much rather guess what Sushantji is thinking right now than what Trump is thinking. But, I think it'll be wrong if, that's my personal layman's opinion, if we were to buckle under a bully's pressure and stop buying Russian oil. Please remember that we are buying Russian oil not because we want to do a favor to our good friend Russia. It's just that it was cheaper for us and made sense. We have saved $26 billion in the last 3 years by buying Russian oil simply because it was cheaper. And the same Western America were asking us to buy to stabilize oil prices. We have bought 2 billion barrels of Russian oil that otherwise, for the last 3 years, we could have been buying from Saudi Arabia, but we didn't because Saudi Arabian oil was more expensive. So right now, I wouldn't like us to catapult just on the basis of what a bully would or would not remove tariffs and stop buying Russian oil. If Venezuelan oil, if it materializes to that extent, is cheaper than the Russian oil, then yes, let's buy it. If Saudi oil is cheaper than Russian oil, let's buy it. And ultimately, our national interest of buying the cheapest available oil should what matter.
Okay, yes, very quickly, before I move into the next story, which is a very important one, viewers, by the way.
Yeah, Sushant's right. India is already not buying Iran oil. 90% of Iran's oil, which is all of it, goes to China. India's also pulled out of the port in Iran. Maybe this is a reward for
We haven't
getting
pulled
out
out
of the
port in Iran just as yet. There is a decision pending.
But the
So
website has been
don't
shut
read
down. People
WhatsApp
have come back.
and
No,
quote
but
all sorts of.
Where was the budget allocation in this budget? For the first time, it's not been done in this budget. So look, the fact of the matter is, well, for the first time the budget. But
the Samosa caucus can't get away by spreading fake news tonight.
No.
Okay,
The
very
budget allocation wasn't done. But let me make another larger point. The more important point is, just one second. Just please, may I make a point, please? You can correct me later. Just the fact of the matter is that we were buying Russian oil. Russia has been our all-weather friend. We should have our own sovereign policy. If we're going to stop buying Russian oil, if that's how it's going to be, only to please a bully, I don't think that's the right way to go.
One second. Let me just quickly bring in Sushant Sareen and then Zaka with the hard facts, because on this show we want the hard facts. So Zaka will provide those for us. Yes, Sushant Sareen, I'm not undermining your ability to provide the hard facts, but yes, go ahead.
No, look, I think Tehseen is wrong on Chabahar. I think what we have done is we've tried to find a via media.
Yeah.
The Americans are leaning very hard on Iran right now. What we have done is we've already allocated the funds which were we had promised for Chabahar. We have another party which we have recruited or we have arrangement with who will take care of the Chabahar port. And if at a later date we can move back in, we'll move back in. That's the arrangement we're trying to do. It does not make any sense that I need to cut my nose to spite somebody's face. I don't see why we need to do that.
Okay.
I think we have stood up to the bullying, but there is also a certain amount of, I think it's important not to be very foolhardy about standing up to a bully unnecessarily. There are certain things which you can do in a somewhat roundabout way.
Okay.
You don't always have to have.
You don't have to stretch the point.
Or Tehseen have that. कटा सकते हैं और सर झुका सकते हैं नहीं.
Okay, so
I think there are via medias, which is what we are finding.
Okay, so Zaka, I just want to come to you because we've also been told that price advantage we were getting by purchasing Russian oil has diminished to the point where it's not really at any level consequential anymore.
Yeah, I think it had reduced to under $2 a barrel, which of course, is not as much as what it used to be earlier, where I think it was up to $15 a barrel when it started off. But more than that, I think after the sanctioning of the two major oil producers in Russia, Rosneft and Lukoil, which is the two biggest producers, it made it absolutely unviable for any refinery to actually ship Russian oil. And at the same time, the oil market dynamics have also changed after, the US operation in Venezuela, the capture of Nicolas Maduro. Now there's a friendly regime, at least friendly to the Americans, that is there in Venezuela. Remember, we used to import Venezuelan oil before there were that were imposed on Venezuela. I think at one point, Venezuela was in the top 5 destinations from where India used to import oil. So I think basically, look, Trump wants a quick win. And I think this gives him a quick win. He can turn around, post it on Truth Social saying that, look, I've got India to stop buying Russian oil. Instead, they have committed to buying Venezuelan oil. You don't really have to buy Venezuelan oil. He just needs to make the announcement. Yeah. So I guess that's the direction in which I think the story is moving.
Well, you probably are right. Let's just pass on this because we're going to wait for the big announcement. Sergio Gore has, in our business, calls it a teaser, viewers. He left us with a teaser. Hopefully by 10 o'clock, we'll have some more news. I hope it's not going to be 11 o'clock because that means we'll have to stay on in office that late. But let's just hope and keep our fingers crossed. Viewers, let's just move on because there is some news that I must share with you, and it is disturbing news. And it requires our attention. Barely 8 months after the devastating AI-171 crash, you remember that horrible crash on the right of your screens which broke all our hearts, which claimed 260 lives? The fuel switch defect which cut off the fuel supply to the engines, eventually leading to the crash, is back in focus. Yes, viewers. Another Air India flight. The aircraft in question, the same Boeing 787 aircraft as AI-171. Same make, same model. However, this time around, the possible defect was identified pre-flight, resulting in the grounding of the aircraft. Remember, after the devastating crash, viewers, mandatory protocols have been instituted to check. And in that check, this has come out. Reports indicate that the incident occurred on Monday during Air India flight AI-132 from London to Heathrow to Bangalore. The pilot reported abnormal behavior of the left engine fuel control switch, which kept moving towards the cutoff from the run mode. A malfunction which could cut supply to the fuel supply to the engine, shutting them down and resulting in a similar tragedy like the AI-171 tragedy which happened, viewers, on that 787 Dreamliner. That flight was, of course, going from Ahmedabad to London, and it resulted in that massive, massive accident because the fuel switch just went off and the zero fuel went to the engines lost power, and that was the end of it. Now, viewers, the Air India Boeing 787 Dreamliner grounded after the left fuel control switch failed to stay in the run mode. The affected flight was A132, scheduled to operate from London Heathrow to Bengaluru. And I just want to open this up because we need to take this conversation forward, because this has just come out. And I want to speak to some of our guests today and get really a sense of whether this actually is the underlying problem. And we have seen a great hurry, viewers, to blame the pilot in the last crash. Same defect, viewers, same defect. Captain Amit Singh is here, founder Safety Matters Foundation. Captain Amit Singh, what are we seeing here? This is, they always say that a coincidence is, there's a lot more to when a coincidence happens.
Well, this was least probable as per Boeing, and Air India never considered this as a serious thing or even bothered to inform their pilots that this is a possibility, a rare possibility. So the pilots never knew what to do. They didn't have a SOP, they didn't have a normal procedure.
No, on what basis are you saying that this was known to happen, Captain Amit Singh?
Well, in 2018, FAA issued a safety information bulletin that on the 737s, some have been reported, and 787 is also one of the affected fleet, since it is using the same Honeywell fuel control switches. So in case anybody reports, then it should be replaced at the earliest. But Boeing or FAA does not decide Air India's safety, or DGCA has to decide the safety standards, because DGCA, the buck stops at DGCA. Now, is this acceptable to us that we continue a flight with a fuel control switch which could flip at any moment? So no, this is not acceptable, even though it is improbable, but the consequences are catastrophic.
Yeah.
As per safety management system, this is a serious issue and it has to be dealt with. And more so because checks have been done on all the aircrafts. Who has done the checks? Air India, based on information from Boeing. Boeing has told them, carry out these checks. So ultimately we go back to Boeing and come back. So Boeing is leading everything. We are just following.
So let me ask Parvez Damania. Parvez Damania, the clean chit to Boeing, was it too premature in the light of what we are seeing? And also, of course, to Air India. Remember, there is an insinuation which is being made that it's the pilot that is to blame for the crash that happened in Ahmedabad. Now, here is something that is eerily similar, thankfully caught in time. Are we just supposed to let the closed file be a closed file, or should we open it?
No, we should not let this file be closed. And when the Air India 171 crash occurred, I kept saying that one of the things that should be investigated very thoroughly is the switch and the Honeywell, because nobody was talking of the role of Honeywell in the crash. And now that this problem has occurred, I just want to bring your attention to something interesting about this problem. This problem occurred at Heathrow. In spite of the problem occurring at Heathrow, Captain Amit Singh may agree with me, the pilot, realizing that this is a very serious problem, should have immediately reported the snag and decided and could have grounded the aircraft or told the engineering team to fix it before it took off. The pilot took off the aircraft, and only when it landed in Bangalore, he reported the snag. I think that is a very serious situation. The pilot, knowing how serious this problem is and what has happened in the Ahmedabad crash. See, the Ahmedabad crash, if you read the preliminary report, it has cleared all aspects, the Boeing, the engine, the maintenance of the aircraft, except the pilot. It leaves a very grey area of the condition of the pilot and is the pilot at fault or not. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you are, I'm sure you're aware of this, that recently people who were working in Air India were related to the pilot were called for investigation. People who had nothing to do with that flight. So I think Air India and Boeing were trying to build up a case that somewhere in the Ahmedabad crash, the pilot was responsible. Now, with this new situation arising at Heathrow, it is very clear that one must look at the problem of this switch, fuel control switch, going off should be investigated.
We need answers.
Thoroughly.
We need answers. I don't know if it's any more, I mean, if we can trust DGCA, KVJ Rao, or we actually should now be cornering the Civil Aviation Ministry as such. If this is what the incipient problem with Boeing, then this needs to be taken up at an intergovernmental level or definitely at the central government level.
Rahul, good evening. As you said, should we trust the DGCA? I think now before every flight takes out, we should look at the Muhurat and contact an astrologer. That is the state of affairs as far as DGCA is concerned. This switch that we are talking of, even when we spoke on the Ahmedabad crash, there were notifications given by FAA that have a look at that switch. At that time, DGCA took it very casually. They said it is not mandatory. If you remember, we discussed this at length when in the Air India crash. You see, if the switches, if that problem has recurred again, then that is the perennial problem. That is the root cause of most of the issues that might be happening on the 787s. So you need to look into it very thoroughly. In fact, I think we should start rostering these aircrafts only after the switches have been checked thoroughly.
I just want to ask you a question because I get the sense that the 787 forms the backbone of Air India's fleet, and if you ground it, that's the end of the business. So someone is putting business above passenger safety. Am I right to presume this, or is this a silly argument to make?
No. As far as
it's not a silly argument at all.
Yeah. It's not a silly argument, Parvez Damania. Why? Please tell me why.
No, it's not a silly argument because safety is priority number one. We cannot compromise with the life and safety of the passengers. I mean, look at the Air India crash. It was terrible. It was shocking. It sent ripples all over the world.
Okay, so let me ask. I mean, what are the numbers here? 787s, how much of the Air India fleet? I'm told that the numbers are coming down. 787-8s. Tell me.
They're coming down because they're ordering the new models that are coming out. But Rahul, when I say ground the aircraft, I didn't say ground altogether at the same time. Have a timetable. This is exactly where, I'm going off track a little bit, where Indigo failed. Had they kept track of their crew and flown those aircraft, maybe we wouldn't have that fiasco. See, what basically we lack is planning. Nobody's bothered about tomorrow.
Okay.
If the flight takes off today, I'm happy. Tomorrow is another day.
Are games, viewers, on this last 20 seconds, are games being played to keep some people happy at the expense of passengers' safety? I'm leaving that question open. I don't have a definitive answer. But we are going to be following up on this story, viewers. It's a very serious incident that has taken place with massive repercussions. I leave it to that. Thank you for watching.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
your 9th consecutive budget. No other FM has done it consecutively for so many times. I think it has also been a period which has been marked by a lot of turbulence. You've seen it all. You've seen the pandemic. You have seen some shooting wars and now tariff wars. And through it all, you have steered the economy. I think if you look at the bigger picture, a job very well done indeed. You know, it is one of the fastest growing economies in the world, any consequential economy in the world. You know, you've managed to keep fiscal discipline under check. You've also kept inflation well below 2%. So the big picture really looking good. I'll ask my first question, which I always do when I start. You know, if you look at the reactions of the budget, some people have called it a status quoist budget. People have called it a conservative, cautious budget. How do you react to this, you know, people saying no bold reforms this time? Of course, much is there in the fine print and it is all coming out. The markets have, you know, come back today. So what was weighing on your mind when you were preparing this budget?
Well, as was observed by you and by domain experts, not just in India, even outside, Indian economy's fundamentals are absolutely strong. It is the global uncertainties, which of course always every government has faced global uncertainties of different order, different level. But now the extent to which global uncertainties are bearing on countries and impacting decision making is of an order that we have never seen before. So certainly we had to keep that uncertainty in mind and plan for what is going to happen this year and what is going to commence in the next 5 years from this year. In that a new finance commission cycle starts. And above all, like the Honorable Prime Minister said, this is going to be the first budget in the second quarter of 21st century, which is up to 2050. Yes. In between, closer to 2050, is 2047 when Vikasit Bharat will have to be achieved. So our direction, our goal are all set. So it was for us to, keeping in mind the global uncertainties, plan for 1 for this year, 2 for the entire finance commission cycle, and 3 leading up to Vikasit Bharat, how do we want to take them? And that is why, slightly differently from every other budget, this time a lot more was said through Part B, right, which actually is unusual because it's not just the tax proposals taking us towards 2047. It also shows how we want the administration to respond, whether it's tax administration largely, or how the fiscal policy and other things are derived from it. And that is why I think this budget, everyone is welcome to have their view, and I respect that. And I try to understand why a certain perspective has come out. Even if it's criticizing it, I try to understand what is the basis from where they've come. But to have had Indian economy grow at the fastest rate from among major large economies, not just 1 year, not just 2 years, now for steady 4 years, it is the stability point that I want to underline. Prime Minister's political stability because he is in the 3rd term, yes, and also his understanding of how you respond to business has remained the same always. We have to be receptive, we have to enable, we have to remove we have to extend the red carpet but remove the red tape simultaneously, and ease of doing business. These are consistent policies. Tax certainty, bring stability for businesses, have been the core beliefs. It's almost a code for him. And that is why, remaining in his 3rd term, he has given the message of stability through this budget. Just one last line on this particular observation is stability and also making sure businesses are able to do business in India at a time when global uncertainty is making decisions difficult for even businesses from outside to come into India. So we are clearly projecting India as a place where businesses can be done, and the large Indian consumer market will have to find its own higher levels of achievements, so opportunities for them. So that
Hello, Namaskar, this is First Post and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. We begin with Balochistan, where scores of people have been killed over the weekend. Pakistan is cracking down after a Baloch separatist attack, and they're blaming India for it. They're also politicizing cricket by boycotting the India match at the T20 World Cup. We'll discuss how it's only Pakistan that stands to lose. Also, why gold and silver prices are falling, and is this the time to buy? How Xi Jinping is openly challenging the dominance of the US dollar. Can the yuan replace it anytime soon? How India has leaped ahead of the United States in real GDP growth, and what does it even mean? Why there's outrage in Bangladesh after the Jamaat chief compares working women to prostitutes. What is India's plan for Chabahar? No new funds in the budget. Is New Delhi stepping back? What is Moltbook, the new social media for AI chatbots? What do we make of the India link in the Epstein files, and what is causing the food glut in the West? All this and more coming up. The headlines first. The Iranian president orders the start of nuclear talks with the United States. Earlier, Donald Trump had said that he was hopeful of a deal which would avoid military action against the Islamic Republic. The US and Europe fear that Iran's nuclear program is aimed at making an atomic bomb. Russia confirms that a new round of talks with Ukraine and the US will begin from Wednesday in Abu Dhabi. It will take place in less than 2 weeks. Before the 4th anniversary of the Ukraine war, the focus will be on the crucial issue of territory. The war has killed thousands and displaced millions of people. Drones target a strategic airport in the northeastern part of the Democratic Republic of Congo. The local government says the drones carrying munitions were neutralized before they could reach their target. No casualties have been reported so far. A nationwide public transport strike hits Germany. It has been called by one of the country's biggest unions. The strike is over disputes regarding pay and working conditions. This affects metro services, buses and trams in all states except Lower Saxony. And the Dalai Lama wins his maiden Grammy for an audio book. Puerto Rican star Bad Bunny